Your Excellencies, the Ambassadors, Honorable Members of Parliament, representatives of government ministries, departments and agencies, representatives of development partners, representatives from civil society organizations, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen. Before I proceed, I would say I'm happy to be here today and to see you in quite good numbers, but also because my older persons are some of the biggest beneficiaries of social protection in Uganda. And I too happen to be an older person, and the Uganda Constitution says an older person is one who is 60 and above. And I have been an older person for 14 years, and I continue to be one until the end. So, on behalf of the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, and on my own behalf, I take this opportunity to welcome you all to this National Dialogue of Social Protection under the theme, Investment in Social Protection Across the Life Cycle. The life cycle approach reflects the different risks and vulnerabilities that individuals face at different stages in life that social protection can be designed to address at each stage. It entails provision of basic social protection to citizens from the cradle to the grave. Ladies and gentlemen, social protection in Uganda has evolved over the years and gained recognition as an effective mechanism of mitigating life shocks and risks, significantly reducing poverty and vulnerability among poor communities. Uganda's Vision 2040, the National Development Plan 3, and the NRM Manifesto outline government's commitment to expanding the scope and coverage of social protection. You will recall that government in 2015 approved the National Social Protection Policy, which provides a framework for implementation of social protection programs in the country. Government's vision for social protection is a society where all individuals are secure and resilient to risks and shocks. To realize this vision, government has been focused on building a well-coordinated national social protection system for the provision of comprehensive social protection services which are geared towards increasing access to social security, comprising direct income support and contributory social insurance, enhancing care, protection and support for vulnerable people, and strengthening the institutional framework for social protection service delivery. To operationalize the policy, the ministry is spearheading the development of the first Uganda National Social Protection Strategy, which is currently in a draft form. I am aware that many of us in this room participated in the consultations to develop this strategy, and I thank you for your input. Distinguished participants, I'm happy to inform you that in addition to putting in place a robust policy framework for social protection delivery, government working in collaboration with development partners and the private sector has rolled out a number of social protection interventions across the life cycle, and these include, among others, 1. The Senior Citizens Grant, popularly known as SAGE. This covers all older persons aged 80 years and above across the country. 2. Development Response to Displacement Impacts Project, targeting refugee hosting districts across the country. 3. The Urban Cash for Work program in Arua City. 4. Nutri-Cash, this is being piloted in West Nile. 5. The National Social Security Fund, NSSF, whose membership has now expanded to over 2 million members. 6. The Public Service Pension Scheme, to mention but a few. Right Honorable members and all present, despite the several achievements registered in the area of social protection, we are still experiencing a number of challenges, including 1. High levels of vulnerability at all stages of the life cycle. Many of our people suffer shocks arising from factors such as natural disasters, chronic illness, disability, job loss, and the death of a breadwinner, etc. 2. The after effects of the COVID-19 pandemic resulted in loss of employment, livelihoods, and incomes by a significant proportion of households, and the recovery has been slow. 3. Inadequate resources allocated for social protection inhibit efforts to expand social protection interventions. Approximately 0.7% of our gross domestic product is allocated for financing social protection in Uganda. This is one of the lowest in the region compared to our neighbors such as Kenya 1%, Tanzania 1.7%, and Rwanda 1.8%. Therefore, distinguished participants, as we gather here today, I invite all of us to reflect and exchange ideas on how best we can expand coverage of social protection for all. Our keynote speaker will shortly be sharing experiences on how we can expand the financing and physical space for social protection. And I call upon all of us, including my colleague members of Parliament, to support our call for increased financing of social protection. As I end my remarks, allow me in a special way thank our development partners, including the UN World Food Programme, UNICEF, FCDO, Embassy of Ireland, World Bank, USAID, ILO, Uganda Parliamentary Platform for Social Protection, KCCA, and others not mentioned here that have over the years supported the advancement of social protection agenda in Uganda. You have laid a strong foundation on which as government we shall build on for the advancement of social protection in this country. Right Honourable members and all participants, I take this opportunity to declare this national dialogue on social protection officially open for God and my country. I thank you.
Gender and social development. Thank you very much for your remarks, opening remarks. Honourable members of Parliament who are here, ambassadors, excellencies, in the introduction. The MC said that UGAFOD has several branches. My understanding is several is like 3 or 4. It has 18 branches nationwide, so I think that's more than several. And we hope to continue to expand. We started it as a simple attempt as an NGO to help the active poor. And we found that it was able to expand, keep expanding. So it became a bank. And now we hope to continue to expand. You also said that I'm head of the, thank you. I'm head of delivery unit in the Office of the Prime Minister. It is true, I was the first head of the Prime Minister's delivery unit in order to improve service delivery starting in 2015. And I was there for 6 years, but I have since left. I left in 2021, so please don't come to me and say, could I do something for you with the Prime Minister? I'm not there. With those corrections, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me here once again to present remarks on social protection, a subject on which I'm quite passionate. And I'm not sure I know how to manage this laptop. Social security, I use the terms interchangeably. There are Ugandans who are living in a subhuman state, a less than human state. They cannot access basic human needs, food. We've seen that in Karamoja, for example. Shelter, medicine, clothing, clean water. Why? Unemployment. If you're unemployed, you don't have income, you cannot buy the basic needs. Disability. If you are disabled, you are disabled. Old age, which Honorable Chidudu talked about, and also natural disasters and orphans. Some societies take the view that the dignity of man, and I'm quoting, quote unquote, the dignity of man is inviolable, unquote. And therefore access to the basic needs of survival should be assured to everyone. We are all part of one human family, and we are interdependent. Therefore, the humanization of any person should be seen as the dehumanization of all members of the society, which is not acceptable to a civilized society. This concept of social security is shared by all civilized societies, irrespective of whether they are capitalist or communist. Okay, so I've just completed that slide. We can go to the next slide. Why is social protection justified? One, because no Ugandan citizen should be left to live in a subhuman state. This word subhuman, I got it from Germany. The former Vice President, Honorable Kazibwe, asked me to write a paper on social security, and I went to Germany to find out their view of social security, and when I met the director of social security there, he said their view is that no German citizen should be allowed to live in a subhuman state, less than human state. And so I have copied it because I think it's an important fundamental principle. No Ugandan should be left to starve to death. No Ugandan should be consistently homeless, sleeping in open air. No Ugandan should be without basic medical care or health insurance. And you know how serious all these things are, because they are real as we sit here. Social security encompasses the security of all members of society. The types of protection required include child protection, unemployment insurance, health insurance, occupational accident insurance, old age or pension insurance, and veterans insurance. It's just a reminder. Next. How do other countries finance social security? I think this is now key to what we are here for. Some of the ways that social security may be financed include deductions from the employee's wages. And we are doing that with our NSSF, for example. Deductions from employers, same. Government taxes, profits on pension funds, personal insurance, private savings and wealth accumulations, and combinations of above means and other methods. Next. One of the core requirements of economic policy is to create real opportunities for all citizens to access income legally and ethically over their entire lifetime. I think that should be repeated. The core requirements of economic policy to create real opportunities for all citizens to access income legally and ethically over their entire lifetime. An environment of massive unemployment and widespread corruption is inherently unstable. It breeds immorality, as citizens are forced to resort to theft, robbery, murder, and rebellion in order to survive. This is undesirable and unsustainable. So what is the solution? I would like to hope that our anticipated oil revenues could be one possible solution. But the experience of the world is that it can be a blessing or it can be a curse. This is not theory. You just have to look around, do some bit of research, and you see that oil producing countries, in some it has been a blessing, in others a curse. But we hope that can be an opportunity for full employment. It's a big problem in Uganda, and also social protection. Next. Will Uganda government have access to oil revenues? Yes. Oil companies will pay the government of Uganda an amount of money equal to about 65% of the balance from the oil exports after cost. In addition, the companies are required to pay a tax on their profits and the royalty payment for mining the oil in Uganda. All these payments could amount to as much as 80% of the total value of the oil exports of Uganda. Simple oil revenue illustration. For example, suppose that the companies pump and sell 200,000 barrels of oil per day in a day and receive about $90 per barrel. That's roughly the current price. This means that the value of this oil will be $16 million a day, 200,000 times 8. Assume the cost of production per barrel is, I just took a figure of $30. Found that in Saudi Arabia, for example, it's only $10. But there are others who are a bit higher, some 20. I said, let me take $30. Then daily oil revenue after cost would be the 90 minus 30, which would give, I think I made an error in calculation, because I have 50 bullets. Say that it's 10 million per day. Then the government takes 60% of that, which would be about 6.5 million a day and 195 million a month. And in the year 2.3 billion. So maybe 2-3 billion per annum. But the more optimistic oil revenue scenario, because we keep finding more reserves, we could go to 500 barrels a day. And at 90, this would yield 45 million per day. And the government could get about 30 million of that at the rate of 65% rate. Hello? My computer is talking back to me. So, on the other upper side, I'm estimating about 7 billion per annum, about 26 trillion shillings at the current exchange rate, 3,750. Just to give a sense of magnitude, the other figures I've seen are giving a figure of about 6 billion per annum on average as the revenue from oil. Take 65 to 80% of that. We must beware the oil costs and corruption. As the oil money flows into the national treasury, many people are likely to attempt various schemes to illegally divert it in their direction. That is, to steal the money. Such corruption, of course, will not be limited to the central government, nor to any specific government ministry. Every governmental jurisdiction in Uganda is likely to be affected, from the central government in Kampala to local governments, and so too will be private entities that receive contracts for public projects financed by the oil money. Should corruption become endemic, the country is likely to squander its windfalls and get little or no real development out of these funds. Social protection is important as public goods. What do I mean? Public goods are the main responsibility of government, while private goods are the main responsibility of the private sector. So the funds of the government are supposed to have priority of financing public goods. So if the government keeps the money from oil, the presumption is that it's going to use that money for public goods. But the question is, how do we balance social protection vis-a-vis public goods? And I'm saying, can one safely say that it's all right for the government to accumulate billions of dollars in an oil fund at the Bank of Uganda or abroad to hold for future generations, when current generations of men, women, and children are going without food, medicine, and shelter? So the view is that the oil fund should be accumulated for future generations. And the question I'm asking, are future generations more deserving than today's poor Ugandans? I believe that this issue requires more debate throughout Uganda. Lessons from Alaska and Norway. Both Alaska and Norway are major oil producers. To ensure that both present and future generations of Alaskans, people of Alaska, benefit from the state's oil wealth, the Alaskan government created a permanent fund in which about 20% of the royalties paid by the oil companies to the government are deposited. The money in the fund is managed and invested on behalf of the people of Alaska by professional investment firms. Earnings from the fund are distributed to all the citizens of Alaska every year, based on the fact that it is the citizens who own the state's mineral wealth, which of course includes oil. oil revenue management in Norway. In the case of Norway, the taxes and other payments from the oil companies to the government have been placed in a fund called the Norwegian Pension Fund Global. These funds are also managed by professional investment managers, and earnings from these funds are used to pay pensions for the people of Norway. And this public program, citizens of Norway are guaranteed pension income once they reach old age. I've been working for Uganda since 1973, when I first became a lecturer in Makerere. I had to run away during Idi Amin's time. I came back in 79, taught in Makerere. Then we started NRM, and I had to run into exile because they sent the army to arrest me or kill me. I don't know if the army arrests, I think they kill. But I escaped by the grace of God. Came back in 87, I've been working for the government since 1987, but I don't have a pension. Can you imagine? The government does not guarantee any pension for me. On the contrary, the few years that I was able to work in America, they pay me Social Security once I turned 65. Shouldn't this situation be corrected? In the case of Norway, the taxes and other payments from the oil companies, the government, sorry, should go to the next. So Ugandans are dreaming, or maybe should dream of Alaska and Norway. It would be a great dream for Uganda, so that old people of Uganda could also have a good pension, and the disabled as well. Since most Ugandans are going to be old one day, why do we not unite? Why do we not unite with one voice and demand that the old and the disabled be protected from destitution? Uganda Petroleum Wealth Fund. We did a fund that's professionally managed, that provides for social security, social protection, covering pensions, orphans, the disabled, the unemployed, the aged, and other economically vulnerable groups. We need a referendum on the use of oil money. This is what Alaska did. Through a referendum, the people can be asked if they would like to receive shares in a permanent fund that would grant them the right to gain directly from the fund's earnings. With that fund in place, all citizens would benefit from the country's oil wealth and would be allowed to participate in the decision on how to allocate it. The decision on how to spend oil royalties should not be made exclusively by civil servants and politicians. And believe me, I've been there. civil servant, and as a politician. We need a referendum so that, because only a participatory, inclusive, people-driven and bottom-up, that is democratic decision-making process, can ensure that the oil wealth is allocated efficiently, non-corruptly, and equitably. We need a referendum. Once the citizens are made shareholders in the fund, they will be free to meet annually or yearly, select directors, and to receive an accounting from the managers of the fund. We should learn from Alaska. These ideas will not be popular with the politicians, I beg your pardon, and bureaucrats who would like to have a stranglehold monopoly on the management and investment of the oil revenues. However, the oil is the people's property, and the decision on how to dispose of it is ultimately their right. The people of Alaska have shown that such participatory management of a public resource can be undertaken through a democratic process, and that the process can be managed equitably and efficiently. There is no reason why Ugandans could not attempt to benefit from the experiences of Alaska and Norway. 20 to 50% of the net revenue from oil could be placed at the disposal of the people. In my estimation, as much as 50% of the net revenue from oil could be placed at the disposal of the people of Uganda by means of the Uganda Petroleum Wealth Fund. Political unity is required to make oil the blessing of Uganda. Opposition parties should embrace the general outline of this blueprint with enthusiasm, rather than turn it into a disruptive political football. It will be groundbreaking for the incumbent government and the opposition to stand shoulder to shoulder to maximize an opportunity that at best arises once in a lifetime. Such cooperation will be rewarded with the greatest of gratitude on the part of the people of Uganda, recognizing that for once, politicians refuse to turn a blessing into either a totalitarian or a sectarian curse. People of Uganda should have their full say in a nationwide vote. Without such pressure for full participation in the deciding this matter, a precious opportunity for Uganda to take steps toward prosperity for all may well be lost. Nothing will be handed to anyone on a silver platter. But if all Ugandans were to join hands in taking determined action, Ugandan oil wealth would truly turn into a blessing for the whole country in all its segments. I do believe that if the people of Uganda were given the opportunity to choose, they would overwhelmingly opt for the 50-50 division of oil revenue between the people and their government. Thank you very much for listening to me.
I believe Professor Suruma deserves a much more rousing applause. Thank you so much, Professor. So we've got an online audience, and for this audience, I would like to ask that all the questions you have, you can post them using the Q&A button so that I'll be able to give them to the panelists, but also our keynote speaker during the interactive session. I would like to confirm with you, Gloria, if we are ready for our health break. Yes, we are. And during the health break, we will listen to some videos of some of the work of the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection. Let us take to have a cup of tea, to freshen up, stretch, and when we come back, I will introduce our panelists for today. Thank you very much. Let's have the video, please. Thank you.
We have reached very many offices. We have made this forum visible by speaking. So everyone almost calls me by social protection. Mama Sage, social protection, because I have pulled myself out of the very many issues that come in Parliament to something that people will know me for, that people will know that I am passionate about, that people know that I will speak from a fact-founded position. And so as members of Parliament, it is very good for us to always identify ourselves with a specific aspect that you'll be known for by all the members of Parliament and the community, that you are known for advocating for vulnerable persons to ensure that their livelihoods are safe, their livelihoods are dignified, and that their livelihoods are assured.
You might be aware that the SAGE program, for instance, particularly, has been donor supported for a while, but through our advocacy efforts, we have been able to bring back government seriously on board. It is now government which is taking full charge of funding SAGE, and we're proud of that. So our advocacy has not been in vain. We have achieved, and that's recorded.
So we'd like to thank government. We would like also to thank our partners for making sure that this grant was given to the people of Uganda. And Karamoja was actually among the first regions or sub-regions to benefit from these grants. So we have seen this grant not only helping the elderly people, but also the children.
We have elderly people who, when they came to enrolling for under the National ID registration, these people had challenges whereby the biometric machine could not pick their particulars, their biodata. At some point, their fingerprints would not be picked. At times, their faces had issues because somebody has got wrinkles, the machine would not pick. And these people are entitled to be benefiting from these packages from the SAGE program. We felt this one way of marginalization and discrimination because of the physical future law challenges someone has. And through that engagement with the NIRA, within those small meetings, I should say we've been able to compel and ask them to come up with unique futures that are supposed to be picked from somebody whose biometrics or whose fingerprints will be taken.
Of course, when you are discussing in Parliament, may his soul rest in peace, our late Speaker, Right Honorable Jacob Olanya, said, you must have evidence-based debate. And honestly, my being on this forum has helped the people of Teregwa a lot. I'm able to know how much money has not been given to the elderly in this country. I'm able to know how much money is needed to uplift them. And I'm able to also share their experience. What the money looks so small, but it has a very great impact. There are so many teenagers who leave their babies with their grandmothers, with their grandfathers. So they continue to take burden of their own children, yet their grand or great-grandchildren. Therefore, my joining the Social Protection Forum has helped me to speak for the most vulnerable, and it has also helped me to advocate for the girl child.
I never used to care too much about the budgeting process and what is being put for social protection. I never used to care so much. But now, because of what I have learned, because of now the belief I have developed, because of the drive that is in me, now I see how I am more interested in seeing what funds have been put for the different groups of vulnerabilities. So that has put me at another level.
It has given me what to say, because I say it from the real source. I don't just talk on hearsay. When you go to our meetings, I know what exactly to present and what exactly to say, and having been in the field, then I'm ready to campaign for our old people. Even I'm ready to protect them because I know what they go through.
Overall, I would say the Parliamentary Forum has added a lot of value to the area of social protection. Having them as champions, especially in the area of advocacy, has brought a lot of awareness and a lot of acceptance of this program, especially the Expanding Social Protection Program, which has been the flagship program for government in the area of social protection. And over time, we are seeing also increased engagement in the area of policy development. Parliamentary Forum has brought a lot of ideas in terms of policy development, and they have been participating in several committees of government which are spearheading policy development of the area of social protection.
This year has opened our eyes to many new things. For example, the core focus of the forum and for members of Parliament largely was about SAGE. So now this year our focus has extended to the children through the Children's System Social Protection Program that is being implemented by WFP, where we are implementing partner. And the same program is not only focused on children as well. It allows us latitude to do advocacy on SAGE, which is a continuous, of course, debate, but then also the disability ones as well, and the whole question of comprehensive social protection interventions and the systematic approach that we've been talking about. And we know going forward that the social protection terrain is going to be more exciting. We'll be having more policymakers who are aware of social protection. We are going to have very robust debates in Parliament on these, and we are looking forward to also having programs like child-sensitive social protection programs being rolled out to cover the whole country.
And for us as members of Parliament, of course, the most area we want to articulate these issues is the microphone in the House. So when you stand on the floor of Parliament and you are able to articulate these issues and you influence debate and you influence support, then you know you have scored it. And so we as the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, from this advocacy, from the capacity building, we have achieved the National Social Protection Policy. We have achieved the exposure to honorable members of parliament on what happens with SAGE, what goes on, the cost-benefit analysis, the business case, and the cost of not doing, the cost of a government not supporting social protection.
projects of the government of Uganda, and that money will not be used to finance recurrent expenditures of government. So we have a legal challenge there, and I thought that I should point it out. But we are very glad that we have Parliament here, and we have the Uganda Parliamentary Social Protection Forum that can take on this legal challenge. So for me, I think that is very key.
Thank you very much. So you've taken more than 30 seconds, but made a very strong point. Can I go to you, Munir? What are your thoughts? Very, very briefly. If you can switch off that one, Angela.
Well, thank you very much. I fully agree with every proposal that Professor Suruma made. And let me add a couple of things. Two of them will be very controversial, just exactly like what he made. Number one, I think in the short run, definitely development partners of Uganda can help. establishing actually the financing of the social protection system by way of kicking it off, but also by demonstrating that it works. Secondly, what is extremely important, I believe, is to create more efficiencies in the government spending. At the moment, the government is spending a lot of money in areas where more savings by creating efficiencies of spending. These savings from efficiencies can be transferred for financing the social protection. One thing which is very controversial, I think we need equity. If you look at us, people like ourselves sitting here, civil servants, the private sector, in the public sector, we enjoy lots of benefits. Travel, education for our children, health, and the poor don't enjoy these things. I think we need equity. We need to look into a social contract where people like us who are enjoying all of these benefits will forego some of them so that some of this money would be transferred into social protection for the most vulnerable.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Munir. Abdirahman, what are your thoughts?
I'm sure you won't be surprised to learn that...
I'm sorry, I've got the name wrong. I'm sorry, Marcus.
I'm not Abdirahman. Morning, everyone. Marcus, our country director, can't be with us today. He sends his greetings. I'll be super brief because I don't think it's WFP's position to identify how Uganda should be funding its own social protection response. I think if I picked up one thing from Professor Suruma's remarks, is that it's up to the people of Uganda in a democratic country to help make that decision together with government. So the World Food Programme is here to support, as Munir was saying, particularly in the early stages, but I think it's only through giving that voice to the people of Uganda that we get the kind of equity that we're talking about.
Thank you very much. Fred? Marcus,
Thank you
if
very
you can
much.
mute your microphone, Marcus, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it's a complex question. Reading your documents, I see it says that social protection is a mandate of everybody. So how do you finance everybody? Is the answer to your question. Thank you.
Thank you. James.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think Professor has attempted to address one of the most critical challenges that we face in the social protection sphere. That is sustainable financing of social protection. He has given us a menu of how we can finance this, and some of this we have tried to apply. However, what I think is a game changer here is when he refers to the oil revenue. And I've told him in private, I support that idea fully because I know financing has been a big, wherever you go, they say we don't have money. Social protection is a priority, but it's an unfunded priority. Now here we are looking at an opportunity in the oil revenue. However, my view on this is that I know the Parliament of Uganda has the powers to create a fund. We may not necessarily have to go the long way of a referendum because as far as I can remember, the last time we had a referendum was when we were voting on return of parties, multi-party system. And it is quite costly, and if we go that route, we may not get what we want to achieve. Parliamentarians are here, so for us as implementers, I think we support the idea. Let's look into it and see how fast you can have it implemented because the powers are within you to create the funds. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, James. And so I'll go back to you. As the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, you are spearheading government's work on addressing vulnerabilities among the population. In brief, what are those things that you're doing in the medium term to address this big challenge?
Thank you. I would like to start this way. The Uganda National Household Survey 2019-2020 put the poverty count of Uganda at 20.3%, meaning that we have over 5 million Ugandans who are below the poverty line. The same survey puts our vulnerability at a level of 43%. And in essence, this means that about a half of our population is at high risk and has a high likelihood of slipping back to absolute poverty. This is a very big question. These figures are not nice. And I want to tell you that government cannot just look on and watch when we are facing this situation. We cannot leave it to fate. Moreover, we know that the high level of vulnerability to shocks also impedes our national economic growth. We have lessons that we have learned from COVID-19 and many other shocks that we continue to face in this country. To this extent, I think social protection is not optional. We are happy that the government that we serve is cognizant of this fact, and this is evident in the policy and regulatory frameworks that they are put in place. Ladies and gentlemen, you are all aware that we have in place the National Social Protection Policy. We have the Vision 2040, and to cut the long story short, we also have the National Development Plan 3. All these are cognizant of the fact that social protection is not something that we can dispense with. Our social protection that we're talking about is mapped onto the Human Capital Development Program of the National Development Plan 3, and specifically under the sub-program Social Protection and Gender. Government's efforts, therefore, in the medium term to address the challenge of vulnerability is aligned to that sub-program, and specifically in improving resilience and increasing poverty, increasing productivity of vulnerable persons, and for inclusive growth. This objective seeks to expand the scope and coverage of social protection for vulnerable people in this country. In line with this, the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, of course working with other partners, has prioritized the following and is implementing. One is scaling up of existing programs. Mention has been made here of the SAGE, or the Senior Assistance Program, where we started on a pilot, we kept on increasing 10, 15, and now we have covered all the districts in this country, 146 districts over the years, and the total number of beneficiaries has gone to over 300,000. We have also designed new programs, and again, they were pilots. Some of them are still on. You have witnessed one here, the Girls Empowering Girls, which is in Kampala, with support from UNICEF. We also have a pilot in Arua City, which is on urban cash work transfer, supported by ILO. We also have another, which is called Child-Sensitive Social Protection, which we are working on with the World Food Programme and UNICEF. There are many that I could mention. We have Dr. D program and a number of pipeline programs. All these are aimed at increasing the coverage of social protection. Again, we are working with the Uganda Retirement Benefits Authority, UBRA, where we are promoting the establishment of retirement benefit schemes and other community voluntary schemes. To date, we have 65 registered occupational retirement benefit schemes with a membership of over 40,000 people. In the area of policy and legal reforms, we have done quite a lot. The most recent of this is the amendment that was handled under the National Social Security Fund, and this now permits voluntary savings and a number of other products which are being provided. There are also ongoing works, as you know, which we are doing with the Minister of Public Service to reform the public service pension scheme. We are also aware of what we are doing with the Minister of Health on the national health insurance.
James,
to wind
sorry
up
to
on
cut
this,
you short. Is there something you're doing for the bulk of the Ugandans who are not formal? They don't contribute to NSSF. They are also the most vulnerable. Is there something specific you're doing for them?
Indeed, as you mentioned, you cut me short. That's what I was coming to. We are working on the National Social Protection Strategy, which is aimed at making our social protection system more comprehensive and shock responsive. And the special focus that we are having on this is extension of social security to the informal sector. And as we do this, we're also not forgetting strengthening our own traditional community mechanisms. Because most of the things we have been doing, it's like we have said the community cannot do it. And yet we know as we grew up, the community also had capacity to do something. So we need also to look back and see how we can strengthen those systems. Finally, on this, moderator, is the issue of data management for beneficiary targeting, planning, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation. And of course, this promotes our accountability for social protection delivery in this country. So we have established a national single registry for social protection, and this is helping us in addressing some of the data challenges that we have. And we expect all the programs implementing social protection to get onboarded into this system, which is already functional. It was launched in 2021, February. I thank you very much.
Thank you, James. Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that are being done by the government, and we thank you for that work. I would like to turn to Munir. Munir, you're the UNICEF country director, and we know that all over the world, social protection has become a key part of the international development agenda, and indeed national development agenda. What do you see as the role of development partners in expanding the fiscal space for social protection, and how can Uganda position itself within this space?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me, before answering your question, just mention very briefly a few statistics which show why we need more an expansion of social protection in Uganda. Statistic number one, more than 23% of the people of Uganda are living in income poverty. More than 1/5, 23% plus are experiencing income poverty. If we look at poverty, not measured in financial terms, but in multidimensional terms, that means deprivation from health, from education, from water, from sanitation, we have 44% of the children of Uganda, 44%, close to half of the children of Uganda living in multidimensional poverty. If we look at people in Uganda who are benefiting from health insurance, only 3%. If you look at people who are benefiting in Uganda from cash transfers, 1%. If we look at people, children who are living with disability with no any support at the moment, for the age group 2 to 4 years, 3.5% of these children are experiencing disability, no support. Children or adolescents in the age group, 17 to 19, you have 7.5% of them with disabilities. This shows you the need for social protection and how little the number of people who are receiving that social protection. So yes, we need to expand social protection services, which means we need to expand the budget, the fiscal space. Professor Suruma mentioned excellent ideas, but let me also add another one. I think mainly we need to change our concept in all of the developing countries for social protection. When we talk about security, we talk about security in terms of military spending. We spend a lot, all of African countries, all of developing countries, they spend a lot, excessively amounts of money on security in military terms. But as Professor Suruma was saying, we use social security, social protection in interchangeable way. We need to move away from security in military terms to social security. move lots of the money we are spending on military, on arms, on police, on soldiers. We need to move that to social protection. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Those are very, very practical suggestions for addressing the financing problem. Marcus, WFP is involved in so many social protection initiatives all over the world. And we know, of course, you're one of the biggest humanitarian agencies in the world. What are your experiences, both from Uganda but also other countries, in handling refugees who are among some of the most vulnerable people in the country?
Thank you very much. I think it's important to be honest up front that social protection in the refugee context is relatively rare, certainly from WFP perspective. We're doing a lot of work, for example, in Lebanon, where we support the government to directly implement cash transfers as social protection to the long-term refugee caseload there. We're also doing some very interesting work in Mauritania, where we're working very closely with UNHCR, but it's a much smaller caseload than you'd find here in Uganda. And if you'd allow me just to spend a little time focusing on what we're doing here in Uganda. The Uganda refugee model has rightly been praised for its progressive nature. 1.5 million refugees continue to be welcomed to safety and security within the borders of the country. Yet, despite this open door policy, funding for this protracted refugee response is dwindling. And WFP is down probably 40% this year, and the outlook for next year is not very encouraging. So there's a need for government and partners to focus efforts on developmental approaches that promote self-reliance among refugees and host communities in order to decrease the need for humanitarian assistance. And social protection has been proven as a critical element of such approaches. I just want to give you a little bit of insight into the development of our self-reliance model. In line with the government of Uganda's commitment to the comprehensive refugee response network, WFP is creating opportunities for refugees and host community members to progressively increase their capacity to sustain themselves through income-generating activities. Our self-reliance model integrates a range of activities through 4 components: social empowerment, a mindset change, the promotion of a diverse range of livelihood opportunities, digital financial inclusion, and social protection. And it employs a combination of push strategies that seek to build the skills and capacities of participants to engage in market-based activities, and pull strategies that aim to remove barriers and strengthen the inclusivity of national systems. Now, recognizing that self-reliance requires supporting not only refugee households, but also the communities that host them, the model targets 70% refugees and 30% nationals in the host communities. And at the heart of the model is a commitment to partnerships and coordination. In alignment with UNHCR's livelihood strategy, WFP will support co-creation, coordination, and advocacy efforts for refugee self-reliance. I'll leave it there for now.
Thank you very much, Marcus. Before I come to you, Angela, I want to turn to Fred. We all know you as a development economist. We know you crunch numbers, and so we are looking forward to what your insights are on the process of building a more progressive, vibrant workforce in Uganda, given the vulnerability that Munir talked about. How can we build that vibrant workforce for an inclusive economy of the future? Because we know there is a lot of empirical evidence of the impact of social protection. And so again, as Munir mentioned and challenged us, how can we rebalance investments between the physical, security, and related fiscal investments with human capital so that we can optimize that expected return on our young population, the demographic dividend? Thank you.
Thank you. Quite a complex web of events. But I think I really want to start on what he mentioned on the multi-dimension poverty. 44% of the children are in those environments that are highly vulnerable, faced with a lot of risks. And it's really among the children that you want to begin the foundations of building the human resource you're talking about. Then you already can see that the problem of social protection goes beyond the 80+ years, because they too are looking after these young ones. So you get back to really unravel the whole conceptualization of our social protection strategies and approaches. The whole fundamental that has been mentioned, I don't see the social protection even in the pillar where it should be sitting. I don't want to see it even in the pillars. You've clearly stated this is a mandate of everybody. So I can't remove security because it is part of it. Without security, a homestead cannot be there. So even your 44% can shoot up to 75%. You want to have that dimension. And that's why I say it's not a question of funding who. It's a question of how do we approach it from that multi-sectoral approach. I'm looking at the numbers here. Literally 49%, 43% of household income goes to food and non-alcoholic drinks. Of the remaining, you have about 17% going into household and utilities for those who rent. Transport is 8.9, education is 8.5. Are we giving sufficient support to that household to build the capacity we need to even do the social protection of that household, leave alone picking out one member of that household? So for me, dealing with the risks and vulnerabilities should really be our core. And this would open us up to the conversation we have had with the Paris development model. Now, unfortunately, everybody thinks this is about financial inclusion pillar. That cannibalization itself is a risk and leaves households facing lots of vulnerabilities that the other pillars are supposed to address. So we want to be approaching the National Development Plan for Development progression by looking at how do we cover these households from all the aspects of where the vulnerabilities and the risks are coming from in order to empower it. Can we also learn from NSSF? NSSF now was saying 55 years you access your money, but now they have said there should be an early access scheme because the realities on the ground are not marked by years. So while we target the 80 years plus, can we also identify those who should be joining the 80-year plus even at 55 because of their unique conditions? We have seen our lady here who is coming from the, what you would think, disability, but it actually has empowered and shown how the girls are empowering girls to move on. So where do we leave such people? Are we waiting for them to get to 80 years? No, we need to redesign a new thinking and say who do we want to pick up earlier and what else do we need to be seeing? The thing that cannibalize the household income, education and health, pillar 4 of the Paris development model, people don't want to talk about it. But I want to believe that is where the human capital is going to be developed for us to really mainstream and have a good grounding for the social protection going forward. So it's a rethinking, really, of what have we done, what do we need to do, and what do we need to do differently. That conversation is what I really would want to see going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think, James, you need to think about, when you come back later, this point about what's the process for rethinking our system. But let's park that for now, and I would like to turn to Angela once again. You're civil society, you represent the voice of the voiceless. and you actually play a very important role bridging the gap between citizens and the government. How have you used this space to boost the cause of vulnerable people and communities?
Thank you very much. I think let me start from, when it comes to vulnerability, everyone would say I'm the most vulnerable, but let me start with older persons, the ones who are current beneficiaries of SAGE, and the issue around financing for social protection. So what we have done as an entity, and also in collaboration with a number of partners, both here and abroad, is that we have a big challenge when it comes to access. And when you look at that access for just that category, you see that in most areas, let's say per district, if you went per sub-county, it is less than 50%. I know there were a number of activities that happened before this dialogue, and there were some field activities. And I've seen the statistics that the Chief Administrative Officer of Gulu was giving for the different sub-counties around SAGE. And when you go through the numbers, you see that it's all below 50. But one of the major issues that we have around that is the requirement of a national ID to be able to access SAGE or the older person grants. That is something that we have been advocating for and working with Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, engaging NERA, because we know that we have big system issues around the national ID. So when it comes to older persons, we have traversed this country. We have been to Rakai, we have been to Busia, we have been to Kayunga. And you find that there are these older persons, some of them are 90 and above, they have never touched this money. And what we are trying to tell government is that having the national ID as the sole requirement for an older person to access SAGE has major limitations. And some of them have confessed to us, like, I have moved to the sub-county, I have moved to the district, and I cannot go back. I was asked for a bribe. I met a 95-year-old lady in Rakai, in Chotera, and she was telling me that the last time she moved, she was put in a border, she fell off, and she almost died, and she said, I'm not going to go back to get a national ID because I almost died. And some of them are so frail, they can't even move. So the requirement of having a national ID with the system challenges that we have, I think when it comes to older persons, it becomes even a bigger challenge. So many of them are not able to access. We have done the documentation, we continue to do the documentation, and we see it as a very big challenge. And also to mention that the Ministry of Gender has been engaging NERA, and they have said that they needed to get 16 billion shillings to be able to sort out the mess. 16 billion shillings. But that money is not available to gender. But then we have a challenge of unnecessary spending by government. We know that every year Ministry of Finance releases budget call circulars where they're saying when you're budgeting, please reduce money on these unnecessary things. But when you look at for financial year 2023-2024, the budget for travel abroad has gone up. It is from 90 billion to 110 billion. The budget for these functions, what we call public functions, has also gone up by a big percentage to 54 billion. And you're like, and then you cannot get money to sort out the challenges of national ID for older persons because gender needs 16 billion. Where are the priorities, and have we understood? Because also in having this discussion, we need to understand that what are the state obligations and what are the rights of citizens to social protection. So for me, I find that very disturbing. But also when you look at this title, investment, social protection across the life cycle, when we talk about the life cycle, we are talking about the full spectrum. So either you are unemployed, you are disabled, you are an older person, you are a mother who has gone to give birth, or you're someone who is doing care work, taking care of someone, that coverage should be provided for, and it is very clear. I'll tell you that Uganda has just been reviewed by the African Commission on Human and People's Rights. We did our 6th periodic report, and Uganda was represented over the weekend. The delegation was led by the Deputy Attorney General. And the Deputy Attorney General said that we have a robust framework for human rights in the country. And, but when you look at the implementation, I think we have a challenge, because I will tell you that as a country and also interacting with the citizens, I think when you look at the practicality of it, let me just give you an example. I went and bought a kilo of sugar about 2 days ago, and it was 6,500 shillings. Gender gives SAGE beneficiaries 25,000 a month. So a kilo of sugar is 6,500. So why is the kilo of sugar 6,500? It is because of the retrogressive taxes. We do not have a progressive system of taxation. They look at VAT, our countries, and of course there is also influence of the World Bank. They look at, you know, these taxes that are easy to collect, VAT is easy to, but what is the impact on the most vulnerable, the people that we interact with? So an MP is going to buy the same kilo of sugar at 6.5 and a SAGE beneficiary at that. So how do we look at also a progressive tax system where the people who earn more are taxed more? But, and then because if we do not change that, then that means the figures for inequality are going up, the figures for poverty are going up, and we're looking that we should be looking at access to social protection as one of the ways of an inclusive recovery, looking at the challenges that we faced. When we go to the communities, I will tell you that even the people who thought that we had some level of coverage, the ones we talk about contribute to NSF, the ones who have savings with the unity trusts were almost depleted during COVID. So that means that we need to go back to the state, and I'm very glad that Professor Suruma in his address pointed it out and said, these are public goods. You cannot talk about social protection and divorce it from the state. It's an obligation. I should have access to health care. I should have a roof over my head. I should have access to education, because if these are not provided as public goods, then we are in big problems. The money that would have been used to finance those then leaves me in a dire situation as a citizen of this country. So we need to claim, and Professor Suruma also mentioned that are Ugandans allowed to dream? This is not just about dreaming, because we are talking about rights. We are talking about the right to social security. And maybe some good news is that during that review in Arusha over the weekend, government announced that they are considering ratification of the African Charter Protocol on right of citizens to social protection and social security.
Yeah, that's a very good place to end this. Thank you so much, Angela. James, as a government representative, I want to ask you a very quick question on your efforts as a government. How can we coordinate this passion of civil society advocacy within the context of our national social protection coordination system? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. The Social Protection Subsector Review of 2014 described our social protection system as one that is characterized by scattered and fragmented interventions by various sectors. And the coming on board of the National Social Protection Policy was partly to provide a cure to that fragmentation that had been observed under the review. And so based on that, as government, we know the important role that our non-state actors play in the area of awareness, advocacy, implementation, financing, monitoring and evaluation, system strengthening. And so we want to tap into all these efforts. And taking lead in this is the Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development to ensure that there is coordination of the various actors. And I just want to mention that at the national level, we have the National Social Protection Thematic Committee, which I happen to be the chair of, representing the Permanent Secretary, and it draws from all these partners, the development partners, the CSOs, the private sector, the faith-based organization. In this, we try to thrash out some of these interventions that are in place to make sure we are pushing in the same direction. We hold quarterly meetings, but also under this we have pillar-specific technical committees. We have a committee on direct income and livelihood support. We have a technical committee on social insurance. We have another on social care and support, and we have another on equity and social inclusion. That is at the national level. And we are replicating this at the local government level. We have already established some of these committees in about 10 districts now, and we want to roll it out to the rest of the districts. Now, beyond this is the issue of establishment of integrated databases, because they help us in coordinating these efforts. Now, one of the things I mentioned was that we have established a national single registry for social protection, and this is basically a repository of data on beneficiaries from all the programs. So I know it's still work in progress, but it's functional, and the implementers here know that on a daily we're making calls on them to tap into that system. We are also upgrading this system to ensure that we're able to capture data to make it have what we call social registry abilities, to capture data on potential beneficiaries. And this will be helping us in the area of targeting. Ladies and gentlemen, you know when we had COVID here and we were asking questions, how do we reach out? How do we pick? As a country, we do not have very reliable data to know where exactly to go. So through that route of the social registry, we believe working with our partners who are supporting us right now, we'll be able to improve on our database. We are also working on standardizing our work processes. Now, in coordination, you must have some standards. And here we've come up with a number of guidelines. For instance, under the labor-intensive public works, we have guidelines. So all designers, implementers, those who are monitoring and evaluating programs, they have a certain set of guidelines that they turn to. So this is helping us to have coordinated efforts. We are also standardizing our trainings, capacity building programs, where we have had joint trainings with our partners here so that we have a common understanding. And now that we are working with UNICEF and other partners, we have come up with a framework for strengthening the social service workforce. So this will also help us have a common understanding and the required skills to move as a team. We, of recent, are also working on institutionalization of an approach to social protection training, which is called a Transform. This is what we are doing jointly with the ILO and UNICEF, and we're happy about that. But beyond this, we also participate in our partners' fora, coordination fora. I am privileged to be sitting on the donor group meetings, the social protection donor group meetings, which is chaired by the World Bank and the Foreign Commonwealth and Development Office. So that is how we are trying to do this. We know it's work in progress, but our priority now is on how to deepen and strengthen these coordination mechanisms for more effective delivery of social protection services in this country. I thank you very much.
Thank you so much, James. And thank you so much, all our panelists, Fred, Marcus, Monir, Angela, and you, James. We are planning to have a discussion with the panelists, but our guest of honor has to leave earlier. She cannot wait for this long. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you can resume your seats, I would like to invite Honorable Minister Kidudu Mafabi to introduce our guest of honor. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, all invited guests, our chief guest, protocol observed. It's my pleasure and honor and privilege to introduce the chief guest, the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. She is a servant to the nation of Uganda, a servant at legislation for most of her life. She has held the highest position in legislation, which is the Speaker of the Parliament of Uganda. As we talk now, she's the first Deputy Prime Minister and the Minister for East African Community. She also has graduated to be an elder, and I happen also to be an MP for her because I'm an MP for elders in Eastern region. She's a lady of tremendous exposure and experience. She understands Uganda very well. She's an MP, woman MP for Kamuli districts. She has vulnerable people there. She understands them. They flock to her office. She knows how to handle them. So permit me to invite Right Honorable Kadaga to address this gathering. Right Honorable Kadaga, you are most welcome.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister of State for the Elderly, Honorable Kabahenda, Chair of the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, and other members, officials of the Ministry of Finance, Gender, also the Prime Minister, representatives of the UN, development partners, our good friend, Dr. Suruma. Let me appreciate all of you for having taken time off your busy schedule to participate in this year's Social Protection National Dialogue under the theme, Investment in Social Protection Across the Life Cycle. Your presence here is testament of your commitment to ensure that every Ugandan, especially the most vulnerable, are secure, resilient, and able to live their full potential. The biggest question of our time has been how to ensure that social protection is financed in the most sustainable manner, in line with the Sustainable Development Goals and specifically SDG 1.3 that calls upon countries to implement nationally appropriate social protection systems for all, for reducing and preventing poverty. That's where we should focus. I've heard the discussion about the oil revenues, heard the discussion about other sources of income. Please work to explore all of them. And I hope that out of this dialogue, we shall come to some conclusion along those lines. Let me appreciate government for the efforts made towards ensuring that social protection becomes a reality. I was happy to see a number of old people explaining their experiences in the use of the social protection grant. I've seen some animals, I've seen some pigs, I've seen some small houses. I think something is happening. I think a foundation has been laid. We now need to make it really completely national, regular and predictable. The persons who are over 8 years, of course there's a debate about the cutoff age, but I think once we organize the resources, we shall be able to address that.
a number of other government-funded social protectionist interventions, such as special grant for persons with disabilities, and more recently, special enterprise grant for the older persons, a significant step towards a comprehensive social protection system. However, a lot needs to be done to increase the fiscal space for social protection. Let me thank Dr. Suruma for pointing us to us where that funds can potentially come from, the revenue. The mineral resources of this country present a much needed opportunity to invest in our human capital, and what better way than through social protection. But of course, the mineral sector is one of the least developed. It's also a very expensive facility. Exploration and development requires a lot of resources. So I want to call upon the Ugandans to find means of investing in the mineral sector. Let me commend the Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, for which I was a patron during the 9th and 10th Parliament, for raising the profile of social protection within and outside Parliament. I remember some time back, we had traveled to the United Kingdom to assure their government that Parliament of Uganda would ensure the appropriation of the budget to make sure that the Uganda government provides counterpart funding. At that time, the DFID were in danger of withdrawing because they felt that the government of Uganda was not interested because we were not providing the counterpart funding. But traveled there and assured them, and we have stayed the course. I want to thank them as well. I'm happy that in the 10th Parliament, we were able to successfully secure the national rollout of SAGE. We thank the government for financing it fully. This is a huge milestone for which we build on other social protection programs, targeting other vulnerable groups across the country. I'm happy to hear the unified voice of support and recommendations for consolidating the progress we have made today from all the presenters, the panelists. Building a comprehensive and inclusive social protection system will be a strong foundation on which we can decisively address the high prevalence and persisting vulnerability, poverty, growing inequality, at a time when the effects of climate change are exacerbating the frequency and severity of large-scale shocks, such as flooding, drought, conflict, and so on. Let me appreciate the MDAs, directed partners, civil society organizations that have supported Social Protection Week and this national dialogue. Coordination and partnership are critical for social protection programs and delivery. Please keep it up. I reiterate my commitment to the social protection case in my official and individual capacity. Thank you very much for coming and listening to me for God and my country.
Please give another warm round of applause to Right Honorable Kadaga. And thank you very much for gracing this important discussion. Thank you so much for the great leadership you provided to champion social protection in your role as the former Speaker of Parliament and what you continue to do now. Ladies and gentlemen, as our guest speaker, our chief guest leaves, would like to revert to our panel discussion, basically ending it with a question and answer session. So I would like to ask the technical team to position yourselves with microphones, because I think I'm going to have to invite the panelists as well as Professor Suruma back to the stage so that these ladies and gentlemen that have been chewing on your messages can get to ask you, share their thoughts, or maybe seek clarification. So may I please invite you once again so that we can actually have a very interactive question and answer session. It's just 2 minutes to past midday. I think if we can take the next 20 minutes for this session, that would do us good. Before then we can actually have remarks from the chairperson, launch of the GEG-MIS and handover of the single registry. Thank you very much. Do we have anybody willing to start us off with a question? Okay, we've got 3 hands up, so we'll start with you. Please mention your name and who your question or comment is directed to, and please keep it within maximum 30 seconds. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Alfred Okwonzi, the District Chairman of United States of Arua. My question goes to James. The recent payment, the previous payment had 532 beneficiaries from Arua for SAGE. And then the recent one got 89 of the 533 dead, giving percentage of the beneficiaries of SAGE who died 17%. To me, the question I have for you is it possible to reduce the age from 80 to 75% so that the beneficiaries keep getting this SAGE money? 17% is very, very high for me.
Thank you very much.
Number 2, the question number 2 goes to Angela. It's known that 29% of the children in Uganda are undernourished. They have stunted growth. And from Ezra Suruma's professor's presentation, health is a dimension for human capital development. From Arua, we have seen that the support of World Food Program and other partners is yielding very good results. The children from those beneficiary families, they are doing very well. The NutriCast has improved so much the family relations. Budgeting is done together. Even the attitude towards nutrition is good. What plans are there to scale up the best practices of NutriCast that we have seen on the ground, to scale it up? Because 29% of the children in Uganda are stunted. That is not good for us for human capital development.
Okay, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I need to cut you short. We really have to manage time really well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. There was a hand here. Please bring the microphone here. Please show me if you want to ask a question. And of course, we are taking the questions, all of them, and then you will have a chance to respond at once. Please keep it short and sweet.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Wandela Jackson, a lawyer. I ask 2 questions. How can we practically increase social protection funding? We've noted that the physical space is small. How can we practically increase funding? Then 2 is, where are the young people in the picture of social protection? This was highlighted by Professor Suruma, that unemployment is also among a major factor here to consider. But we never talk about the unemployed youth whenever we're discussing social protection, either whether they've lost jobs or while they transition to the workspace and so on and so forth. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please take the microphone to our elder, Mr. John Orach.
He's the young man from Yumbe. Just 3 questions. The first one is to Dr. Suruma. The issue he raised about the oil fund, and that it should be for the young generation, future generation. How about us who contributed all this time to the development of this country, and we are about to leave this? Where is our share? The other one, this magical age of 80 years, those who passed the age was during the national rollout. And the idea was that the age would come down within 3 years. For those people who passed that, what has happened since that time? Why have we stagnated at 80 years when it was supposed to come down within 3 years? I think that's an issue we want to address. We need an answer for that one. The last one is, this age, those of us who remember, Stephen, started at 20,000 at the pilot phase. And every year it went up by 1,000. Then it stagnated at 25. Since that time, why are we stuck at 25? Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. There is a hand, 2 hands. So we'll start there and then come to this front table.
Thank you so much. I'm Bob Atwine. Uganda has the youngest population in the world that accounts to 78% of the population. Approximately 20% of these young people is unemployed, meaning they certainly don't have the basic needs they need. And as you know, maybe they are idle somewhere in the villages, marrying when they are idle, when they are jobless, contributing to the high number of population. So where is the space for the young people in social protection, and what is the future of our country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. So 2 questions about the youth, James. Yes, ma'am, please come.
Thank you very much. My name is Atori Elizabeth, and I work with civil society. My questions are 2. 1, as has been stated by the panelists, our vision 2040 underscores the importance of ensuring that we address risks and vulnerabilities. Under our social protection policy, a key recommendation is for the National Health Insurance scheme to be rolled out in order to ensure that we are reducing the costs associated with health for everyone. What are we doing as a nation to see this to life, and why has the bill been seated for, I don't know, 3 years now, since the president declined to assent to it? My other question is in respect to a challenge that was raised by Angela around the national ID and integration of the national ID system with social protection. As a country, what are we doing to overcome that challenge, especially given that this has created barriers? And knowing also that whilst we're speaking about financing for social protection, we should be speaking about financing the government agencies that are dealing very closely with social protection systems. NERA is one of them, and we've seen that we've had a number of barriers associated with getting access to social protection when people don't have national IDs. So how can we be able to ensure that we move forward as a nation? That one specifically goes to gender and also to our development partners.
Thank you very much. We have we actually have 3 questions over there. 4.
Thank you. My name is Zingabwa Simon. I work with Koboko District Local Government. My question goes to James Ebitu. He did mention that there are also options for informal social care and support services at the community level. And I want to ask that how do we ensure that the traditional social care and support system, which used to be there, can be revived amidst challenges around negative mindset of communities who think that every support should come from the government. The second issue is about the National Labor-Intensive Public Works Guidelines, which is in place, and I want to believe that it has not been rolled over to all the districts. How do we practically ensure that this guideline guides all the actors in social protection, but also using it as a tool for building resilience amidst reduced funding?
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Assalamu alaikum.
My name is Aziz Kiria, General Secretary, National Union of Government and Allied Workers. I have an issue because I think government is trying to run away from what they are supposed to do. Currently, there is a bill which is talking about pension fund. While government has been catering for the retired civil servants, and as much as for us trade unions who have been having challenge with people who are getting pension, the delays and all that, I think when they come up with this, why are they running away from the obligation of catering for the senior citizens who have served this country? And we are here talking about social protection for all. When government is failing to take on the 300 and something civil servants, can we achieve this, what we are discussing, if they are not ready to take on the task which has been there for so long? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, so one question there, the question on the next
I have a phone here.
Okay, so is the order. You go first, man in...
Yes, my name is Tony Nsima. I come from Prudential Assurance Uganda Limited. My comment goes to Mr. James. Now, most of your presentation has largely hinged on the government programs in terms of social protection. And it's as if you haven't mentioned any role that is being played by private sector, like private insurance. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you please grab that microphone? And so, two questions from there, and then we'll come here.
Yeah, thank you very much. Richard Ubia is my name. District Community Development Officer from Terego District Local Government. My concern goes to James. James, thank you very much for your responses and for what the ministry is doing. My question is a follow-up. You are aware that we have been implementing a Spotlight initiative, and the achievements were very tremendous as a country. We have been ended. And through this, we have built a very formidable social protection workforce. And with the support from UNICEF, we had the social welfare officers, as now by the policy of the Child Policy 2020. And in our previous engagement, your senior, the PS, informed us that the issue of the social welfare officers is going to be presented in cabinet to see how they can be part of this social workforce. I wanted to hear how far this process has gone, because we realize that there's a gap in terms of protection, especially at the lower local government and sub-county levels. You are aware that we have the CDOs, and with our numerous government programs, the issues of social protection is a little bit at a stack. And they are aware that the probation officers are officers of court, and many of these cases are at the sub-county. So how far has this thing gone? As I proposed in the previous engagement, I said if we could ensure that we have assistant probation officers at sub-county level, such that they can attend the court, will be grateful. Maybe I will be happy to hear feedback in relation to the same.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll take just one question from that gentleman and then we'll come up here. I think we are...
Analysts, my question goes directly to James. You did give a good presentation, but it's like you are cooking alone. There are no people in the house. Hamid is us, our development partners that are doing pivotal role to see that a lot of things happen. In my district, Lamore, we have what we call Empower You Cash. That has helped to improve the standards of our young people as far as issues of malnutrition is concerned. So I want to send this directly to the ministry, that this is a pilot study of 6 months. How do we get on board with such program so that it helps our children move up? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can you please bring the microphones? So we just have 2 more questions. The man in a pink shirt and then finally the Honorable.
Thank you so much. Friday Moses from Safe Earth, Uganda, promoters of community-based health insurance. Mine also goes to James. Could you take us a little bit maybe through the committed sustainability plan of these programs? Because as we talk of the programs that are supported by our development partners, we also need as government to have a plan to move forward in case these development partners face challenges. The next, I understand that the SAGE and the other programs financing is also affected by out-of-pocket healthcare expenditure. Most of these people use this money when they fall sick, and unfortunately they don't invest. What plan do you have alongside the Ministry of Health to steer the National Health Insurance Scheme where we can have everybody onboarded and we protect them from catastrophic healthcare expenditure, and then they can maybe use the money for income generating? Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. And finally, last question before we get over to our panelists.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Peg Joy Wako. I'm a national female member representing old persons. I have 2 small issues. All over countrywide, there is an outcry of old people who were not registered, those who would be benefiting from this 25,000, but they cannot get it because their IDs are wrong. I thought this would have been a right dialogue if we had somebody from NIDA and we discuss this thing once and for all, because we have done whatever we can do. These people, we have failed to find a solution for them. They are there, they are very many, and many of them are dying without receiving this money. Secondly, when we have such a dialogue concerning social protection, and we don't have somebody from finance here to dialogue with us, that's why even when we take our requests, they are never considered. Because we have cried, we have talked in Parliament about increasing that SAGE money and reducing the age, but because the finance people are not involved, that's why it can never change. What can we do?
Thank you very much. I've got my own question, and this will go to Munir. How can we make our social protection child sensitive? What ideas do you have as a child rights organization? What advice do you have for the government of Uganda to make it much more child sensitive? Because we've got a lot of children vulnerable. They can't achieve their full potential. So what advice do you have for the government? A lot of questions were pointed at you, James, so we'll start with you, but please keep it very short so that we can get out of here in the next 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dear participants, I love the questions, and I think next time we should organize a workshop and so that we attend to these questions more comprehensively. Now, the first question I received was from Alfredo Kwanzi from Arua, and he's complaining about the people who are dropping out, and then the replacements are not being done in good time, and some money is not being spent according to what he expects to be paid in his district. He's also proposing reducing the age from 80 to 75. And I think there are many questions which have come on this subject. I want to mention that this proposal is on table. Indeed, when the national rollout was approved at 80 as a threshold for a cut-off age, there was a roadmap that would annually, that is limiting our capacity to reduce the threshold amount, increasing the benefit amount from 25 to maybe 30 or 40. We have this proposal. Mr. Wandera Jackson is talking about how can you practically have social protection funding from government, or social protection funding in general. I think from the presentation of our good Professor Ezra, he mentioned very clearly how social protection can be financed. There's contributions from government, but there is also contributions from members. There are contributory schemes in place. So when we're looking at financing social protection, let's not only look at what comes from government. There are contributory schemes. You've heard one member is talking, I think he's not in support of the public service pension scheme reform because he's asking for members to make a contribution. So I want us to look at that, but on the side of government, we have to continue as a common voice to advocate for more funding. Everybody has spoken here and is saying there's limited funding. So you, I, and everybody in this room, let's strengthen advocacy. The good thing for us is we have a strong parliamentary forum on social protection. We have to commend them for the effort. They have done their best in Parliament to try and ensure there's increment in this, but can that be sustained? Muzee, the young man from Yumbe, John Orach, I think I've answered your question. My brother Tina, if I heard your name well, you are talking about the youth. I think when we talk about the life cycle approach, as an implementing team, we have identified the vulnerabilities at every stage of the life cycle, including the youth. We are talking about inadequate skills, unemployment, poverty, and all these things. Now, the step we have moved to is to propose what kind of interventions will address those. We even know them, what should be done, but the issue still remains funding. Again, it goes to the same argument that can we advocate for more funding? Can we introduce an employment benefit for the youth? Can we continue from what we have to ensure that the issue of skilling is stepped up to cover all the youth who are affected by this? Can we even think about livelihoods so that the enterprise support that is happening now is extended more to the young people? So there are all questions around this. The ideas are there, but it all boils down to sustainable financing. From civil society, the issue of the National Health Insurance Scheme, which is being spearheaded by Ministry of Health. It has been quite unfortunate that this process has taken quite long, but from what I gathered a few weeks ago is that the bill is being resubmitted to Cabinet very, very soon. So let's wait and let's pray. There's every belief that the provisions that have been included there now are stronger and may convince the powers that be to make it pass through. The national ID challenge, we cannot go against these suggestions that have come up. We really need our people to benefit, and national ID should not be a hindrance. Now, as a ministry, which is responsible for the implementation of the SAGE program, which has kept coming, we know national IDs are important, and there's a reason why they were introduced, even the digitized payments and so on. So we have come up with the proposals that given the challenge we have, where NIRA cannot provide that money, a cabinet memo has been prepared. Actually, we discussed it last week, and it's going to be presented to cabinet. One of the options we have is, can we have a waiver and allow the community vetting committees give us information? So if cabinet agrees that we just, without the NIRA ID, if we can get evidence from the community, which is acceptable, can we go ahead and pay? So these are proposals which are put on table and will go as part of the cabinet memo to cabinet for consideration. We shall inform you But we have not abandoned the idea of working with the NIRA to have registration done. We had hoped that the promised national registration would sort out this problem. But looks like they are having financial challenges and they are not going to do that any soon. We don't know what is going to happen. We shall be advised. My brother Edobo from Koboko, informal social care support. I don't know whether I have got this very well. The issue of the community support systems, I think it's a basic question, and it goes back to how well are we participating in preparing our families, our communities, to know that social protection is a shared responsibility. So it goes to our own guidelines on parenting. How deeply are we sensitizing our people on their responsibilities? Give an example. A mother or father has taken care of 10 of you all through these years, and 10 of you are failing to take care of a mother. Do you know what that tells about us, this generation? So it's about us working with the cultural institution, the religious institutions, the clans, to make sure that we inculcate this culture in our people to be supportive of their own, even before we look at government. Social protection is a shared responsibility. On the National Labor Intensive Public Works Guidelines, not rolled out well enough, we want to make a commitment that we shall reach out as soon as possible to all the local governments. Asiskia, from the National Government and Allied Workers Union, is government running away from responsibility? You know, when you are making this submission, you said government is failing to take care of 300. That's already an indicator that there's a problem in the existing system. The burden of payment of pensioners is so high, and that's why there are payment delays and so many other things. So part of the cure to this is to make it a contributory scheme. That's the objective of the National Social Protection, the Public Service Pension Scheme. Can we make it contributory like those in the private companies are doing? A worker contributes 5%, and then the employer contributes 10%, so that's as sustainable as now we see in the NSSF. So the answer to this question comes also from the challenge that you have seen. Why is your pension payment delaying? Why is government failing? It's not sustainable to finance it through government. And now it's going to even to be worse with the salary increments for scientists. Somebody was supposed to get about 200,000 as a package. Now the salary has been increased. It will require about 1 billion as gratuity or retirement. So the burden is even going to grow bigger with the salary increments. The other one is my brother, the DCDO from DCDO, Spotlight Initiative. We have worked on a structure. We've discussed it with the Minister of Public Service, but approval of these structures have been delayed by the government's suspension of recruitments. So we're waiting for the restructuring process. You have heard about rationalization of enterprises and public expenditure. So this has not yet gone to cabinet as was promised, but we're pursuing it. We know where we are, and it's something that we look at. I know for sure the position of assistant probation officers was provided for in the proposed structure. There's something from my RDC, Osborne Ocheng. I call him my RDC because I worked also in the district where he is. It looks like we are cooking alone. No, we are not cooking alone. We are all here. We are all in the kitchen. The pilot, we are happy to hear about that pilot. Share information with us. We learn from pilots, and we want to see how this can be replicated in other places. So that's the information take home. My team is here. We shall capture that and get back to you to learn from that pilot. I think finally, not finally, the community health insurance. We have been working on this as a team. The issue is sustainability. We have our partners who have helped us in this. They have been making some contributions. So just like we talked about other voluntary schemes, we want to encourage our teams our communities to contribute to community health insurance scheme. But the issue is, how do we sustain them? And the other question is going to be answered by the health insurance scheme, which is being submitted to cabinet. I hope it will capture some of the things that we have under a community health insurance scheme. But it's a good practice, and we have seen the benefits. The question is sustainability. How can communities sustain them? Maybe in the future we shall say, if you drop a coin, then government also adds something. We have seen it happen in other countries. Where you drop a coin, government also contributes a certain percentage. But are we ready for that now? These proposals we know of, but the key question is how much, to what extent can we finance this? Lastly, Honorable Joy Wako, she calls them small issues, but issues from honorables are not small issues. The issue of NIRA, I think you're aware, we have already answered, we are dealing with it. We hope the waiver may be approved. If not, we have to go the hard way. Minister of Finance not being here, they have always been with us. We don't know what has happened today. We shall still get back to them and we engage them. But it's our prayer that we work on this as a team to continue with the advocates for social protection. That's what I was able to capture, and I thank you all for this.
Thank you so much, James. As we wind up this panel, I think there were specific questions, but it wasn't clear who it was addressed to. But I had a question for you, Munir. While you answer that question, starting with Angela towards the end, if there is a specific question you want to respond to or comment, please feel free. But I would like to actually ask all of you for one last word you want to say about how to progress Uganda's social protection system in the future. So I'll start with you.
Thank you very much. I'll try to wrap it up. I know a number of questions touched on funding, because when someone asks and says, how about us, the youth? How about the children? It all ties in with funding. So first of all, let me state that social protection is key to securing a number of rights. That is why you also saw in the keynote address of Dr. Suruma that he was talking about, I shouldn't starve to death. I should be able to access health. Then there are issues around education, access to education. So it ties in a number of rights, and we categorize those rights as economic, social, and cultural rights. So in answering the question about funding, let us also be reminded that this social protection provision is a state obligation, and the right to social security is an entitlement for all citizens. So you do not have to be old to access social protection. Across the life cycle should be the word. And it doesn't matter where you're born, whether you're born into poverty or what, it doesn't matter. So whether you're sick, unemployed, all those number of things. But let me give some answers, some solutions, because my colleague here from Gender, we work closely. They have also been grappling with funding, and also people who work in government will tell you that unfunded priorities. So let me give some suggestions. My team at the Initiative for Social and Economic Rights, we've done research to see how we can fund progressively these public goods to be able to live in dignity. And I talked about progressive taxation earlier. So what is progressive taxation? In progressive taxation, we are looking at a progressive system where you do not have taxes like VAT that are impacting more on the vulnerable, but look at who is earning more and tax them more, such that it doesn't bring more problems of inequality. Another thing we have in this country is around the tax exemptions. There are too many, but we would like Parliament to compel the Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development to do a cost-benefit analysis around tax exemptions, the current tax exemption. We do not have that study, unless it was published yesterday or it's ongoing, but we need Parliament to compel Ministry of Finance to do a cost-benefit analysis around tax exemption, because we are losing a lot of money around that. Another thing is the illicit financial flows, that people who come here to do business in the name of investors, and this money is either moving out illegally across borders, but also we have a lot of money, people who are doing here business legally, and they are earning this money legally, but the way they are doing their tax returns, they do not pay the amount of money that they should be paying in taxes. Big corporations. And then the other thing is around taxing global multinationals. We have many global multinationals that are coming here. That digital tax would take us very far in securing money for these public goods to avoid the situation that Dr. Suruma talked about of a subhuman state. And the other thing also that we could look into in how to get more money as a country to finance this is there are a number, of course, leakages that I've talked about, but we need to eliminate unnecessary spending, and that one I've already given details. That can we make sure that we prioritize, set our priorities right? What is the use of the budget called circulars when people are not following them? Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Monia.
Well, thank you very much. Let me start with the question you have asked and then sharing some thoughts as you have requested as well. With regard to how to make the social protection system in Uganda child sensitive, let me start by saying that the way I look at a child sensitive social protection system is the system that is able to identify children with life-threatening vulnerabilities and then addresses these vulnerabilities. So who is living in life-threatening vulnerabilities in terms of the children in Uganda? I will say children who are facing stunting, children with malnutrition who are facing specifically stunting. It's quite a large percentage of children. Stunting is a life-threatening vulnerability. So we need the social protection system to address this vulnerability, identify these children, their households in which they live, and target them. If we don't do that, the life of these children is at risk. Secondly, we have another group at a very big risk. In Uganda, we have 15 million children who are in the age group of school going. So we should look at how many children are in the schools in Uganda. Are they 50 million or less? At the moment, out of the 15 million, 6.2 million are in the labor market. This is according to the last labor survey, which is less than 1 year old. If you have this number, which is close to 45% of the children who should be in school are in the labor market, that's a risk. Their families, they need the little income these children are generating to overcome their financial income poverty. So a child-sensitive social protection system should identify these children, should support them to be back in school. These are only two examples. I think there are so many other vulnerabilities. The last type of vulnerability I want to mention, which is not well reported, is a category of children who majority of them, not all of them, were born during the COVID lockdown. During the COVID lockdown, every day, more than 1,000 teenage girls were becoming pregnant. 1,000 girls, more than 1,000 girls, every day were becoming pregnant during the lockdown. And we are talking about statistics taken from the health facilities. Imagine the teenage girls were pregnant, but they never visited a health facility. What has happened to the babies of these girls is a big question, and they are very vulnerable. Why? Number one, all of those pregnancies and deliveries we believe were unwanted deliveries. And we read in some of the newspapers during the COVID lockdown, some babies in Karamoja were being sold. We know the majority of these babies are facing problems of disputed fatherhood. They don't have birth registration. They don't have any birth registration. They are vulnerable because even their identity is not clear. We need to target the teenage girls who are in this situation. One of the things we are doing in UNICEF, together with KCCA or the Ministry of Gender, is addressing this category of girls through the Girls Empowering Girls. So we need to make our child protection system more sensitive. But this takes me to, you asked, what is the thought I want to take from here or I want to share? The major challenge is that we have very few vulnerable people in Uganda in different age groups, very vulnerable, but who are not receiving any form of social protection. As I mentioned, 23% of Ugandans are in income poverty. 44% of the children of Uganda are in multidimensional poverty. How many are receiving cash assistance? Less than 1% of the population of Uganda. There is no time to waste. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Munir. Marcus.
Thank you. So social protection as a pathway to self-reliance, whether amongst refugees or the host population. I think at the World Food Programme we see it as a de-risking exercise and a creation of opportunities. When you're working with those who've been left furthest behind, as Munir has just said, they're both resource poor but also time poor. So when you have an opportunity that comes your way to invest in a new livelihood opportunity or income generating scheme, you simply don't have the opportunity to take that step. Or if you do it in a very half-baked way and it fails. And this is one of the reasons that we really felt the need to include social protection in our self-reliance model, and especially the SAGE piece, because it's often the care burden of women at the household level that means they don't have the time, they are time poor to invest in those opportunities that come their way. With SAGE providing support to the elderly, the grandparents can stay at home and take on a large part of that care burden, allowing those who really have the ability to work and earn to go out to work and pursue those opportunities. I should note I came from Myanmar before coming to Uganda 18 months ago. The qualifying age for the old age pension there was 82. So we're doing pretty well compared to Myanmar here in Uganda. We have to start somewhere. I think just watching those videos earlier, particularly the impact of the SAGE grant on those beautifully resilient and dignified old people, and the way that the availability of a small amount of money allowed them to invest and make real progress. I think what we need to do, and this has been talked about by Angela and others, is see how we can make it more of a life cycle approach. The chairman of the United States of Arua highlighted the impact of NutriCash at the very earliest stage of life, from conception to 2 years of age for the child and the pregnant and young mothers. We have the beginning and the end, but what can we do to bring it together across the life cycle? Because my final thought, social protection works. Thank you.
Many thanks, Marcus. Fred.
Thank you very much. Where is the finance? I worked in his office when he was Minister of Finance. So I think finance is somehow here, in a way. But that helps me to re-emphasize my point earlier of it's not about either this ministry or the other ministry. It's about what are the government budgets doing. I can as well ask, where is the Ministry of Health and what conversations are we having with them? When you look at the target group of 80 years plus, they are likely to be vulnerable to malaria. That will chew off your entire 25,000. So when the Ministry of Health is working on malaria programs, we need to be engaged with them because we have an interest there. They are now distributing mosquito nets. I would want every 80 year plus, actually 50 year or 60 plus, to be lined up for a mosquito net. So the conversations are with so many people who should be here. Somebody has just talked about the food and nutrition. I can as well ask, why is the Minister of Agriculture here? Because the people we are talking about, social protection and vulnerabilities, are speaking to those spaces. So really our space of social protection is everybody's mandate. And one of our other core roles we need to do, besides giving out the SAGE and policy issues, is the coordination to make sure anybody who should be doing what they are supposed to do are actually doing it. Because we can only leverage other people's budgets. Not all budgets for social protection are going to come to us. And I'll just end with a story I need to remind him. He came one time and had read the Monitor, and the Monitor had profiled Cancer Institute. You remember those people used to be in the verandas and under the trees. He said, Muhumza, I'm annoyed with this one. We must do something about it. And that's why the Ministry of Finance becomes very, very fundamental, which is the point I want to raise. It's a ministry above the others. He allocated 5 billion to the Cancer Institute that day. And my task was to write a paragraph. And you can check the budget speeches there. We distributed the 5 billion. 3 to construction, capital development. That institute, the building is there because it was sustained over the years. 2 to drugs. And I think a bit of it to human resource. That was in June. He read the budget. With that paragraph there, come December, a letter came from, I don't want to say the entity, but you can suspect, reallocating that money to something else. I said, but cancer, what the minister agreed on is still there. I called the people responsible, and we had to make sure we blocked that transfer. And to make sure the money remains where we put it, we created a vote, Cancer Institute as a vote, to take charge of their budget. The rest is history. So surely the Ministry of Finance needs to be engaged above the other ministries. Now I can hand over to him to tell his story, since I've told part of our story.
Thank you very much, Fred. That's a very nice anecdote. Before you come on, Professor Suruma, I just wanted to make one point. I think, Fred, you make a good point. Everybody has a role to play in building secure and resilient livelihoods, as the policy says. And I think there's a very nice diagram that articulates Uganda's social protection system and its role. But I think there is a very central place that social protection, particularly income, direct income support, occupies in this place. So it's true, Ministry of Agriculture can, provide food security. The Ministry of Defense can give us, the security we need in our borders. But for the most vulnerable people that we've all been talking about, income is so fundamental. If you don't have cash in your pockets, even when there is a free school next door, and you don't have uniform, you don't have money to buy soap and clean yourself, you did not have supper, you're not going to use that opportunity. So I think there is a role for everybody to build resilient families, but income security is so central. It's at the core. And I think this distinction needs to be always made and remembered that, yes, because when I remember like 12 years, 13 years ago, everybody was saying, but what are you talking about? We have UPE, we have universal health. The reality is that for the majority of Ugandans, even when these services are there, they can't access them due to financial barriers. And I think that's the core role of social security that needs to be acknowledged at a household level. And so with that clarification...
No, just a minute to add. Actually, we are on the same page, because what I'm looking at is when you give this money, what takes away that income? Can we cover that elsewhere so that this income remains with this person for an emergency or their very core need? You saw your person here, he said he planted rosemary. He did goats. Now, if there's no extension service provider, that investment is gone.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Fred. Over to you, your reflections, Professor Suruma.
Thank you very much, especially for your remarks about income. I don't know how you read my mind. There were questions, particularly youth unemployment, youth being 78% of the population. This is a fundamental question regarding social security. The first priority for social protection is income, is employment, self-employment or employment elsewhere. And speaking as an economist, the most important problem of what we call macroeconomics is employment. So in any advanced economy, the number that matters the most is the rate of employment vis-a-vis unemployment. You want to make sure that unemployment does not go beyond a certain number. The moment unemployment exceeds that number, the government is considered to be a failed government, and a new government will be brought in because people must have income. Social protection problem becomes too aggravated and too big to handle when the majority of people who should be working are not working. There is no, where will the government get money to finance such a level of social security or social protection? So, I want to say that as we talk about the future, as we talk about oil money, definitely the number one focus for economic policy is full employment. That's the purpose, that's the target of any government regime. And if an economic ideology is not providing full employment, it is a failed ideology and should be let go and another one adopted which can bring about full employment. And we can't compromise on that, and we shouldn't. Then the few people who are left unemployed or for unemployed can resort to social protection while they are looking for jobs. There is some provision for social protection for those who are not employed, but it's a temporary measure. For example, in America, they will give people food stamps so they can access food while they are in the process of looking for employment. So in my view, therefore, even as we talk about oil money, I'm not suggesting that the oil money should just be, people should come in a line and just hand over money to them. No. The first resort of oil money should be as capital for the country to create more jobs. It's then those who are either disabled and totally unable to work, those would be the ones to benefit. The children that Mr. Munia is talking about, these naturally have to benefit. I found in Germany, if you are pregnant and you produce children, you get a benefit from the government. It's part of their social protection program. So Therefore, I don't want to be misunderstood. Oil revenues should provide capital for us as a country to increase employment. And then, for those who are not able to get employment, for those who are overage, or too young, or too disabled, those are the ones to benefit from social protection, and it should be a small percentage. But also, of course, those who have become old enough to get pension, there should be universal pension and universal health care for the country. So those are my views, and I thank you very much for listening.
Thank you. Please give them another round of applause. James, did you have one last word, or you spoke already?
I think it is very clear to all of us now that vulnerability is a fact of life that we cannot dispense with. And we have seen a cure in it in supporting social protection service delivery, which I said is a shared responsibility. And therefore, as a person who is in playing a coordination role, I would like to encourage all of you as partners that let's join hands and save ourselves, save this country from the cost of inaction or inadequate action in social protection. I thank you all, and I want to thank Uganda Parliamentary Forum for organizing this dialogue. Thank you so much.
Amazing. Thank you so much. You may now resume your seats, and as you do that, I would like to move us into the next phase, which is the launch of the Girls Empowering Girls Management Information System. And I would like to invite Ms. Eunice Tumwebaze, who is the Manager for Gender, Youth and Children at the Kampala Capital City Authority, to come and explain what this program is about and introduce a video that you're going to watch shortly.
Thank you so much, the moderator, chairperson, Social Protection Forum, members of Parliament, development partners, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm here to just give a short introduction about the Girls Empowering Girls program that is coordinated by Kampala Capital City Authority, supported by UNICEF, working with partners like TMF, UIDER, that we are supporting the adolescent girls. Like here, you heard that many girls became pregnant during COVID, and meaning they could not cross over to secondary school. Some live in the most vulnerable places in Kampala, in some areas, meaning they are not able to manage to sail through to the next level of adulthood. So we have been implementing this program since 2019, and we have a video that shows a documentary, just a short documentary that shows what has been happening. And then we have an MIS that we have developed with support from UNICEF to capture data. We noticed the discussion here was indicating that some of the issues that we face is getting data, knowing who is the most vulnerable, what is happening to them. So as KCCA and our partners, we have developed an MIS that will help us to capture data of everyone that is benefiting from Girls Empowering Girls, but also identifying the most vulnerable in our community. Malcolm, I will request that you pay attention to this short video. It is really very short. And then we'll request the chief guest to launch the MIS so that we begin to use it as KCCA. And if you love it as government, you can scale it up. Thank you so much.
The Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, working together with partners like UNICEF, had to move down to support Kampala City Authority to come up with a program known as Girls Empowering Girls.
The Girls Empowering Girls is a social protection program. We are targeting vulnerable girls. These are girls below the age of 18, both in school and out of school. And these are basically vulnerable girls who cannot afford the basic necessities to keep them in schools and to keep them going.
Through this intervention, we are supporting the girls in Kampala with a cash transfer component which helps to capacitate the girls and their families to be able to access basic services. We're actually also providing linkages, to access basic social services in health, in education, as well as in protection and access to justice. We are also providing mentorship skills for those girls to help them transition into more productive adults for those that are choosing alternative paths.
Nalina omwana aliko obulemu kati nga gwendabirira mwanyinaze najjaafa nenja nsigaza fayika nembeera nga kwegamba omugugu ennetise muki munene Katonda atanyamba nembeera nga bajja ne bawandiika omwana oli alina obulemu nabeera nga akola ki afunayo kale ku buyambi obutuweebwa KCCA sente ezagege eza Sumaiya alina obulemu mutwalako ekatalemwa mu b'obulemu ne basobola badokita okumulaba mbeera ze zaalimu nazigulako n'embaata nembeera nga ngulako n'ensansa bwentyo okuluka ku mikeeka nisobola okubeera nga zitulabira mu bbanga zisobole otutuusa wali ku sente eza lutu endala eziba zizze.
I was 16 years. They were telling you that I'm too old. The man wanted to sleep with me by force. He wanted to rape me. I told him, no, I don't want. I want to go back to school. I was crying every day. I had nothing to do. I was confused. Then I remembered my mentor. She told me, whenever I get any problem, you just call me. I will be there for you. Then I called her. She called my dad. I don't know what they talked about, but after one day, I was back to Kampala and back to school. Now I'm so happy. I have been in school and I'm still in school. I have finished my primary 7. I'm going in secondary.
We're looking at scaling up the program, but also having a replication of the same to other urban centers. The lessons from the Girls Empowering Girls program in Kampala will be incorporated in the development of the National Social Protection Strategy for this country.
We are proposing as UNICEF, as the organization that focuses on children's rights, that Uganda considers as social protection measure and payment for children under the age of 19 who are living in extreme poverty. Their life can change. They will live with dignity, they will go to school, and they will not be forced into early marriage. They will not be forced into child labor.
Thank you so much. So there is one for launching, talking about the MIS, and then we shall have a curtain raiser. Thank you so much. Malcolm? Thank you, Ministry of Gender, for all the support. I know we've been working together this journey. It's a good program. It has 3 components. The first component that is very important is mentorship. Thank you so much. So we'll request I don't know, David, maybe our chief guest will stand and just click, and then we launch. Malcolm has the... Malcolm. So is the chief guest. So thank you so much. The MIS really describes the whole process, how the money is transferred from KCCA to the girl, and we can tell who has received the money and who has not. Through mentoring, still we can get to know the issues that are coming through. All those issues are handled at that level, and we can see them through the system as who sit this other side at the office, through how to manage life and also progress safely to adulthood. Thank you so much. So now it's time to launch.
Hallelujah.
Amen.
It's my honor and pleasure and privilege to launch the GEG program for Uganda. Thank you very much.
Okay. I request that the people we work with under GEG, Annette, Zaina, yes, Zaina, people we work with, GEG, Annette, Sam, TMF, UID, please come and we take a picture with Professor. Mr. Rakabare, I saw you somewhere. Please come and represent KCCA. Our director, Mr. Bitu, please come and we take this moment. It's very, thank you so much. Mr. Rakabare, you need to be around here. Mr. Tawanda, we did not thank you. Oh yeah!
Congratulations, KCCA. This is a wonderful program, and thank you for sharing it with us. We've got one more launch. Another launch of something, right? You're handing over something. So Tawanda, would you please come over here and show us what you've got for us for the single registry?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, colleagues. All protocol observed. I don't have much to do. What David just requested me to do was to explain the few things that we have in support of the social protection agenda. As you remember, Mr. Ibito mentioned the issue around data, how the country struggled with targeting for cash transfers during the COVID. And I think what we keep doing is to keep supporting the ministry to strengthen the systems to be able to be ready. So as part of that, UNICEF is handing over very few things to the Ministry of the Single Registry, thanks to Mr. Ibito and the Minister of Gender. So this is equipment that is meant to facilitate data collection for consolidation in the single registry. And it's targeting only just a small part of the country. It's targeting 12 districts that are hosting refugees. So all the districts that are hosting refugees, except Kampala, will be supported with computers. So I think there are 36 of them, computers. We've got tablets that are going to be supporting the structures at the district level with the data collection itself. We've got laptops that are supporting the National Data Center. We've got 2 screens, TV screens for display that will help in terms of the data interaction. We also got software, the firewall, that will also help. Monir and Mr. Ibito, please come forward.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, everybody. We are at the tail end of most of the discussions we've been having. So we've got all the administrative stuff out of the way. But there's one more thing to do. I would like to introduce one of Uganda's foremost champions for social protection. Honorable Flavia Kabahenda Rwabuhoro, who is the Member of Parliament for Women of Chegegwa District, and the founding member of the Uganda Parliamentary Forum for Social Protection. She was the founding chairperson, but she's also presently the chairperson of the Gender, Labor and Social Development Committee of Parliament. Honorable Rwabuhoro, you are welcome to come and give your remarks and actually close this event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, David, for really steering this event to time, because I got worried in the morning when I came that we were going to be so terribly out of time, but I think we are not doing badly. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and others, because since yesterday I understood that the intersexuals are also some vulnerable group, those we call hermaphrodites, because they have no sex yet, some of them. And that's when I realized that actually this country could be having more than 4,000 intersex persons. So we need to be very inclusive, that we say ladies and gentlemen and others, not to include homos, of course. But I want to take this singular opportunity to welcome you once again and to be very thankful and grateful to all of you. Dr. Suruma, we cannot take the time you have given us for granted. We want to thank you very much for being here. Director Ebitu, Ministry of Gender and the Expanding Social Protection Unit, we want to thank you for the collaboration and for organizing with us the National Social Protection Dialogue. The Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection members, I want to thank you very much because you were ahead of this. Welcome back from Lamuo and Acholi region. And we want to thank you for the role you played there. And I'm sure whenever communities see members of parliament, they know that their issues will reach the decision tables. I would like to raise you up, honorable members of the Forum on Social Protection. Just stand up so that people can know that the forum is here. These are very gallant members of the Uganda Social Protection Forum. Some of them could have walked out for various reasons, but they were on top of this. I want to thank all our development partners, WFP, UNICEF, Irish Aid, and all the other development partners. I'm sorry that I didn't get a whole list of them, but I know we work with them. And they have done us a very great job to make sure that they walk the journey of social protection with us. I want to thank the technical partners who are here, all of you in your technical capacities, beginning with the Secretariat for the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection. I don't know whether my Secretariat members are still in the room or they are making some organizations. I can see Joshua, I can see Gloria, and I'm sure the others are doing administrative work. I want to thank you very much for the technical assistance you have given, and all of you technical people who are here, coming from different civil society organizations and development agencies. I want to just say a few things, to thank our panelists, to thank our guests of honor, who we snatched from a number of meetings that she was engaged in as one of their key people in those meetings, but she gave us a little of her time to be here. And deliberately, the Right Honorable Kadaga was our patron from the time of inception of the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection. Up to the 10th Parliament, she was still the patron. So she knows the journey more, and we thought she would share her wisdom with us, having walked us this journey. I want to just say a few things that most of which have been actually said here, but we are all aware that we are talking about transformational social protection systems. And those transformational systems require that we have sustainable financing solutions. Sustainable financing solutions should be both homegrown and also assistive or aid granted. Yes, we know it is the role of government to support its people to live a dignified livelihood as entrenched in the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. We know that the role of our development partners and all the partner agencies is to complement the work of government to ensure dignified livelihoods. But at the same time, I think we need honorable members and colleagues here to go back and look at the traditional ways of social protection. Some of them are still alive, and some of them are only not documented, but they are being practiced. I don't know whether each one of you knows that communities have decided to group themselves into development groups, and not only development groups, but even planning for death. We have to Ezike, and don't think that that is not social protection. They know that one time they will die, and another time maybe they will lose someone. So they have come together to plan, to be prepared, to take on just in case one of them lost someone or one of them died. And so we only need to encourage these people with documentation so that we can also look at it and give them further capacity to make sure that this is recorded as social protection. Because when we talk about social protection, we are talking about resilience, building resilience. And that is why Director Ebitu talked about the poverty rate and the vulnerability rate. The poverty rates are very low, lower than the vulnerability rates. There are people who are not poor, but they are vulnerable. I hope you agree with me. There are people who are not poor, but they are vulnerable. And so social protection is meant to save people from vulnerabilities, to secure them, to build resilience so that people can not only run out of poverty, but also be safe from vulnerabilities. And you saw the numbers are almost half. If we have 49% people who are vulnerable, but only 20 point something poor, then we need to understand social protection much more than what we know now. And Dr. Suruma was trying to tell us with Dr. Fred that this social protection thing must not only be a humanitarian concept, that we are giving relief so that people can keep quiet. No, we should build it from a humanitarian concept to a development concept where people invest, where people have become resilient, that social protection only becomes a springboard for them to get back up. And so the discussion needs to now start being mixed. We need now a social protection solutions mix that will mix both humanitarian service and also the other development concept where people can work, where people can be engaged so that they get some money to invest and be able to build their resilience. Of course, I don't want to take you further to what our very good panelists discussed here and the keynote speaker who gave us a very powerful concept that the involvement of citizens is very, very key. Inclusivity of citizens in decisions on money, on financing for this country becomes very key for us to take home as champions of social protection, that we should, as much as possible, include and engage communities and citizens of this country as stakeholders onto their development programs. Of course, we need partnerships that are strategic and coordinated. We want to thank you, partners. Let's continue to support strategic priorities of this country to get our people out of vulnerability. As the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, for us, we are promoting awareness amongst members of parliament. You know very well that at every parliament, we get a very good number of members who are, I don't know whether to call them new, but who are coming to parliament. And so we need to continue to capacity build. All the time we go back and forth to ensure that we don't leave them behind, because when we come to the floor, we need their support, we need to influence and make sure the policy decisions that are made on the floor are those that will take us to take the social protection agenda forward. And we also look at advocacy. We do a lot of advocacy because all of us members of parliament have platforms wherever we are, beginning from our constituencies up to wherever, and all that we have to remind people about is the social protection agenda, where each one of us is a stakeholder. It is everybody's business. I heard Dr. Fred asking whether government is going to give money to all of us. No, all of us should give money to social protection. So it becomes everybody's business. Let all of us give. And that is why I'll be giving you what I think after I tell you what the forum is doing. And the forum is looking at the policy and legislative frameworks. For Ministry of Gender, we are saying, yes, we have seen the National Social Protection Policy, but when is the law coming? When are we getting the law? Because the policy must be followed by a legislation. Where is the National Social Protection Strategy? When are you bringing it? It is long overdue. And so as members of parliament on the Forum on Social Protection, we are looking at you fast-tracking and giving a speed to these two documents so that they can now create sanctions on social protection. And of course, we also do oversight because we go to the field with civil society, with development partners, and the Ministry of Gender to interact directly with the social protection interventions that are being done. And of course, our flagship was in SAGE, but today we have broadened. We are now overseeing even the child-sensitive social protection. We are overseeing NutriCash. We are overseeing the Public Works program. We are overseeing now the Girls Empowering Girls program. So we are widening. And therefore, the social protection agenda of this country, like Director said, has been scattered and fragmented. And as members of parliament, we need to put it together, especially when we come up with the legislation, to ensure that our investment as government in social protection is captured well with all the integrated activities and interventions that government is making. But I was looking at philanthropy, because very many fiscal interventions were proposed. For me, my proposal is that one of the game changers can be voluntary and charitable giving from individuals, foundations, and corporations, what we call philanthropy. I know that Ugandans are very philanthropic. Someone just throws a message on WhatsApp to inform you that he's going to marry, and people start giving money on the paper without seeing even the face. By the time you realize 2-3 weeks, someone has 10 million from people just sending money for a wedding, for a burial, for all those things. And I want to commend Ugandans for that, because that's the African style of really supporting each other whenever we are in need. But how about Ministry of Gender and you development partners beginning to walk us into a journey of understanding that even this that we do is philanthropy, and that it can be guided as philanthropy for development. And I know that it can only be understood, it can only be bought by people if there is diligent management processes. If people can collect some money towards some cause, maybe child-friendly social protection that we have said here, but if there are no diligent management processes, then people will be discouraged and they will stop their philanthropy. if there was alignment of philanthropic funding to the organization's strategic priorities, if every Ugandan understood our strategic priorities as Uganda, then even if we requested for philanthropy for the aspirations, we would be better off making them understand so that they can contribute and we maximize impact. I know that it can be a catalyst to achieving competitive advantage and deeper mission impacts. It is Martin Luther who said that when we keep quiet about things that matter, the society rots. I am very glad that we have a national social protection dialogue. We have been quiet enough. It has been a silent journey enough. Today, we have brought it forth. We can no longer keep quiet to things that matter. The vulnerable people are increasing in Uganda, and therefore we can't keep quiet anymore. Every one of us, wherever you are, you understand the burden of dependence at household, at individual. Everyone is looking at you, even if you are not an MP. Everyone is looking at you. Whenever you dress up to go to your address, even when it may not necessarily be a job, because whenever they see you bathe and put on some clothes and you are going, they think you are going to earn. So now every other person will land on you for supporting them for everything. They think you have a job when you are just going to an address to keep there. So they think now you must support every other thing. So that burden cannot stop us now from talking, because it is very, very pinching on all of us. And therefore, I want to buy Martin Luther saying, we cannot allow society to rot. And so, honorable members and all of you participants to this dialogue, I want to tell you that this is the beginning, it is not the end. We are entering the budget season, and so we would like at Parliament level to hear your voices on what budget priorities you would like us to include as we scrutinize and analyze the budget proposal from the Ministry of Finance and from government. So you are welcome to the committees, different committees, finance, budget, gender, natural resources, wherever you think, because social protection now is going as far as addressing disasters that are happening not only in Karamoja, but in almost every part of this country. And so we would like to hear your voices. How best would you like to see your budget look like? And we shall be there to give your voices, and we ensure that the budget captures a good number of issues that are supporting social protection. I thank you very much, and on behalf of the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection, I would like to appreciate your coming, appreciate the time you've given, and also wish you a blessed day and a blessed campaign for social protection. I thank you very much, and I would like to declare the dialogue closed.
Thank you so much, Honorable Rwavhoro. Before we go out for lunch, there is a very small ceremony that all of us need to participate in. So our keynote speaker, Professor Suruma and Flavia, will lead us into the process of signing a commitment. All of us will sign a commitment. I don't know what's on that document, but on that board, but we are obviously committing to investing in a life cycle social protection system. Can you bring it maybe to the center? Yeah, that would be much easier and more photogenic, I think. Excellent. Do we have a pen? Okay, we are looking for the marker for this document, but I would like to ask all of you to give a warm round of applause and thanks the Uganda Parliamentary Forum on Social Protection for hosting this great event. Big round of applause to our keynote speaker, Professor Ezra Suruma. A big round of applause to all our panelists. And a big round of applause to Honorable Flavia Kabahenda Rwabuhoro for championing the cause of social protection in Parliament. So if you will, please come over and sign, and then everybody else will take turns to sign on this commitment. And as that process goes on, I just wanted to end this conversation today by saying that if we invest in a life cycle social protection system, which basically means that every child in Uganda has access to the financial means through their parents to enable them to eat well, to access health services, to access educational services that are free. They will be protected from the worst forms of vulnerability. They will get the full benefit of the investments we have in education and health, and in the future there will be more productive employees or entrepreneurs or farmers, and that's how we're going to break the vulnerability to poverty. So please, everybody, if you can walk over to the board and sign it, make sure your signature is on it. We are making history. Honorable Flavia said we are starting on a new journey. Please sign and become a part of this journey. When you finish signing, please go at the registration desks at the back. You will find your lunch coupon, and looking forward to having more conversations with all of you during our lunch time. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here today. Give yourself a big round of applause. Thank you so much, and thank you so much to the technical team for all your support with sound, the pictures, and everything else, including our meals. Till next time, I remain your friend, David Lambert Tumwesije, and please join us at Save the Children International to build more child-sensitive and inclusive social protection systems. We are part of this journey, and we are really excited to be here as well. Thank you.